All right, let's just jump right into it. There's this debate that seems to catch fire every single time a new video goes viral. Are kids today, well, are they getting worse? More disrespectful, more entitled? It feels like such a modern problem, but as we're about to find out, it might just be one of the oldest complaints in human history.
This right here is the absolute core of it. But the wild part is, this isn't some new hot take. It's a complaint that has been made by pretty much every generation of adults ever. For literally centuries, older folks have looked at the youth and thought, well, there goes the neighborhood. Society's about to collapse.
But when a clip like that one from Khan Buniga Karopati completely blows up online and triggers this massive public backlash, you have to stop and ask a real question. Is this just the same old story, the same old complaint? Or is there something genuinely different happening with parenting and the pressures that are shaping kids today?
So let's start with what kicked this whole conversation off again. And it wasn't some deep academic study or a big news investigation. Nope, it was just a single moment on a TV game show.
So on the show, a 10-year-old contestant had this exchange with the host that a lot of people watching found really, really rude. And oh boy, the internet just exploded. The backlash was instant. People were calling him arrogant, disrespectful, and of course it all came back to his parents and how they were raising him. That one little clip basically became a lightning rod for this huge society-wide anxiety.
Now, before we start dissecting modern parenting, we've got to talk about a little trick our brains play on us. It affects pretty much all of us, and it's a huge part of the story. Psychologists even have a name for it.
This is the kids these days effect. It's basically a well-known memory illusion. We tend to look back at our own childhoods through these, rose-colored glasses, remembering how we were all so well-behaved. But when we look at kids today, we see every single flaw magnified. The funny thing is, our parents would probably tell a very different story about how angelic we were. And get this timeline shows just how ancient this whole thing is. We're talking 700 BC, ancient Greece, and writers were already complaining that kids didn't respect their elders anymore. A few centuries later, the great philosopher Aristotle was writing about the exact same thing. It's a pattern that just repeats and repeats and repeats all throughout history. So, okay, the kids these days effect is definitely real. We get that. But does that mean nothing has changed? Of course not. There are absolutely some unique pressures and major shifts in parenting today that are having a real impact on how kids behave. Let's dig into what those are. First up, there's this phenomenon that's becoming super common, especially in urban families. Some people call it the six-pocket syndrome. You see, with the rise of single-child families, you could have one child who is the focus of 6 different adults, the 2 parents, and then both sets of grandparents. And what this creates is this incredibly powerful funnel. All the love, all the attention, all the gifts and resources from 6 adults are all flowing down to one single child. And you can imagine this can make a child feel like they are the absolute center of the universe. It can lead to them expecting everything right now and really struggling when they finally hear the word no.
And right alongside this is something called parental overvaluation. This is when parents are constantly telling their child not just that they're loved, but that they are fundamentally better, smarter, and more special than everyone else. What the child hears is, hey, because I'm so special, the normal rules of politeness don't really apply to me. And look, this isn't just a theory. Parents themselves are feeling the strain, big time. In fact, when polled on one of the biggest challenges they face, the answer was just, well, it was overwhelming. It all comes down to this number. A 2022 poll found that a staggering 93% of Indian parents admit they struggle with discipline. And a huge part of this is that many parents are almost afraid to say no. They want their kids to be happy all the time, so they avoid setting firm boundaries. But without those boundaries, kids never learn critical skills like self-control and resilience. And there are other big things at play here too. The shift from large joint families to smaller nuclear ones means there are fewer aunties and uncles around to help guide behavior. The pandemic led to massive social isolation and way more screen time. And then there's the simplest factor of all. Kids are sponges. They learn by watching, and they often just copy the exact behavior they see from their own parents.
So when people see a kid misbehaving, what's the knee-jerk reaction you always hear? A good slap would sort them out, right? It's that call for stricter, old-school discipline. But here's the thing. Modern science tells us this is a deeply, deeply flawed idea.
This is so important. We have to understand the difference between compliance and respect. Punishment can get you compliance, sure. A kid will behave because they're afraid of getting caught and punished. But the moment you're not looking, that bad behavior comes right back. True respect is different. That's when a child actually understands why a rule is important. And that is a lesson that sticks with them for life.
I mean, the research on this is just overwhelmingly clear. Corporal punishment doesn't just fail to teach the right lesson, it often teaches the exact wrong one. It's directly linked to kids becoming more aggressive, it hurts their mental health, and it sends this really dangerous message that using violence is an okay way to get what you want and to have power over people.
Okay, so if letting kids do whatever they want is a bad idea, and harsh punishment is also a bad idea, then what's the answer? Where's the middle ground? Well, the great news is there is one. There's a well-researched, balanced approach that really works.
This table just lays it out so perfectly. You've got two main ingredients, rules and warmth. On one extreme, authoritarian parenting. High on rules, but really low on warmth. That creates kids who are fearful. On the other extreme, you have permissive parenting, all warmth, but no rules. That can create entitlement. But look right there in the middle. That's the sweet spot. Authoritative parenting. It's high in rules and high in warmth. That's the one that produces confident, respectful, and disciplined kids.
So what is authoritative parenting? It's all about being firm but fair. It means you set clear and consistent boundaries, absolutely. But, and this is the most important part, you enforce those rules with love, with empathy, and with a real explanation for why the rules exist in the first place. It's about building discipline, not demanding domination.
So what does this actually look like day to day? Well, first, you have to be the example. You have to model the behavior you want to see. Second, you explain the why. You ditch the old because I said so, and you give them the logic. Third, the boundaries have to be crystal clear. And finally, and oh man, this is the hardest one, you have to be consistent. Sticking to that boundary, even when your kid is having a full-blown meltdown in the middle of the mall, that's what makes the lesson actually sink in. And let's just circle back to that KBC clip one last time. It's such a good reminder of the audience effect. When the child made that cheeky comment, the whole audience laughed and clapped. That probably just encouraged him to keep going. But the real harm might not have been his behavior, but the intense, national, public shaming of a 10-year-old kid. That causes real damage.
So at the end of the day, this really is the core challenge for every modern parent, isn't it? It's not about choosing between being your kid's best friend or being a strict dictator. The real goal is to find that perfect balance, to raise kids who feel deeply loved and supported, but who also understand what it means to have respect, boundaries, and discipline. That's the real work.